What's up, everyone? I am Doug Kyed, joined by Michael Hurley on this week's Pat's Chat Podcast. Michael, how are we doing today?
Doing great, Doug. How are you?
I'm doing well. Started at my new job this week, doing a bunch of stuff over at A to Z Sports, managing editor, NFL writer, reporter, covering the Patriots, all that cool stuff. But let's talk about the Patriots. Let's not talk about
Shout
Doug
out, shout
Kyed.
out to me for not, I had that scoop long before the internet, but I didn't leak it. So shout out to me.
Yeah, wow. I put the embargo on there. Everyone abided by it. I told very few people. People would text me and be like, "Oh, where are you going?" It wasn't a lot. There wasn't a lot of people texting me, but most of the time, I'm just like bad at texting. So once someone would ask me, I just kind of ignore the message and be like, "Yeah, I'll reacquaint myself with this person when I'm allowed to say this." But
Fair enough.
I did tell you.
Well, welcome back to the working world.
Yeah,
I'm sure the other side is better, but this is life, buddy. Get to work.
I know. Yeah, not working. It got like kind of sweet at a certain point, but
Yeah.
now it's good to have a job. It's good to make more money than I was before. So yeah, things are good. But let's talk about the Patriots because
Sure.
the rest of the NFL world is at the NFL scouting combine. Did not make it out there this year, but there's been kind of a surprising amount of Patriots news, which is why we're not holding this podcast until Sunday. We're deciding to talk about it on Friday instead.
Would you say this is an emergency podcast?
No, I would not.
Okay.
This is the Jackson Smith and Jigba met with the Patriots emergency podcast.
Yes.
Had there been an emergency over the report card that the NFLPA released, we probably would have recorded this on, what was that, Tuesday or Wednesday instead? Wednesday?
Tuesday, I think. I think it was Tuesday. Could have
I
been
think it
Monday.
wa-
There's
I
really
think
no
it-
difference.
I kind of think it was Wednesday, but we can agree. to
Oh,
disagree.
today's Friday, so you bring
Yeah.
up a good point. Yes, the days, they don't matter, Doug. It's just a construct created by humans. So time is what you make of it. So yes, the other day it did happen. The NFLPA survey, which the results weren't so good for the local football team here in New England.
They were 24th overall out of, there's 32 NFL teams, so they were in the
Yeah.
bottom quarter of NFL teams. And I think it was
Well,
what?
I mean that's kind of an optimistic, pessimistic thing, isn't it? Aren't they technically at the bottom of the third quarter? Hold on, I'm doing fingers.
Yes. Yes, you are correct.
Yes.
It
No,
feels
there's
easier
only
to say
7 under
bottom
them. This is a lot of math. They're right on the cusp. They're between the third and the fourth quarter.
They're right around the bottom quarter of NFL
I think they're in
teams.
the fourth. I think you're right.
There's 32 of them, and so it was, I think, 1,300 players, which you guys can do your own math, dividing 1,300 by 32 to see how many are per team, or maybe Mike can do that right now as we're speaking.
40 players. That's a lot of players.
It's about 40 players per team. That's a good results for this survey, I would say. And players were polled on locker room. They were polled on weight room, how good teams are to family members. They were polled on travel, strength staff, training room. I don't think I'm missing anything in there.
Bringing it up, but that sounds about right. I do want to just go to our lead item, which is that the Jaguars have rats. Okay, carry on.
Jaguars have rats, and the Cardinals make their players pay for meals.
Yes. So we've got treatment of families, food service / nutrition, weight room, strength coaches, training room, training staff, locker room, team travel. The worst grades were team travel at D plus and the weight room at D, which you don't want a D weight room. That was 31st in the league. Football players famously, Doug, love to have muscles on their bodies. And without an efficient
Well,
weight
football
room, it makes
teams
it
love
hard
their
for them.
players to have muscles too. No, that is
It's
true.
true. All I
it's-
am is asides. Do you remember when James Harrison came? James Harrison, like Mr. Lift a Lot.
Yeah.
When he came to New England, he was on Instagram and he was working out at a Planet Fitness, which is I asked him about it on media night. I'm like, did you go to Planet Fitness? He's like, no. I'm like, no, you did. Like I saw it, purple yellow walls. Like you were. He was like, oh, that place, yeah. I was like, what was it like at Planet Fitness for James Harrison? Anyways, carry on.
So the Patriots are, I believe, getting a new weight room as part of their stadium construction. But why didn't that happen last year?
Or like 7 years ago.
I mean, I guess I can,
Front,
but like
it's
I
not like a
understand the
front-facing
lighthouse took a while to build.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, you get in and out of the weight room in like a month.
yeah, I mean, like my gym will add a new piece of equipment every 6 months or so. I feel like, I don't know, that
You
one
go
was
to the
weird
gym?
to me.
You go to the gym?
Occasionally,
Oh wow.
about twice a week.
Sick.
But yeah, the weight room was an issue. I would say that overall, and there's probably not a lot of people who listen to this podcast who walk inside the bowels of Gillette Stadium, but then also maybe walk around other stadiums as well. I think that for players, it's probably a little bit different than it is as media members, but if you're walking into a newer stadium facility, like the Vikings or the Raiders or something like that, like it feels as if you're walking indoors into a building. There are a lot of times though when you're at Gillette Stadium where you feel like you're walking into a garage or like a warehouse or something.
Yeah.
And to some degree, I think that might play into some of these ratings, that like the Patriots just unfortunately built their stadium at the wrong time, where like it was before all of these fancy new stadiums, but it was still recent enough that they can't just tear the thing down and build up a whole new one. So it's just kind of an unfortunate set of circumstances with time that it just doesn't look as expensive or as new or as fancy as some of these other new stadiums.
So there's only 10 stadiums newer than Gillette Stadium. Did you know that? I didn't until just now.
That's interesting.
There was 4 stadiums opened in 2002. You had Houston, Seattle, Gillette, and Ford Field. But since then you had Lincoln Financial, which I think you'd count in the
It's
older.
like exactly the same as Gillette,
Yep.
basically.
So then in 06 you had Phoenix, Glendale open, Lucas Oil in 08, AT&T in 09, and then you're really cooking with the new ones. Now MetLife Stadium, more
MetLife
of the
sucks.
old style. Levi's.
But it still feels like you're walking indoors in MetLife.
Yeah, you're not. Maybe it's just the openings, whatever. Then you have
Yeah.
when things really start getting primo is 2016 with Minnesota, 2017 with Atlanta, 2020 with LA and Las Vegas. Those are like the cream of the crop.
I would still say though that it was just the wrong time, because even like the Cardinals stadium feels a lot newer. I would say that like AT&T Stadium obviously feels a lot newer. Lucas Oil, it looks maybe a little bit dated at this point, but it feels like more of a new stadium than Gillette. Gillette was a little bit more, it's not like a cookie cutter stadium like they were in the 70s, but like Gillette, the Ravens Stadium, the Eagles Stadium, they all just sort of feel the same.
Yeah, it's that group there from like 90 95 when the Jaguars opened through about 05 was like that stretch where that's what you had. So yeah, it's unfortunate, but I mean, you look down in Nashville, that stadium opened in 1999, and you want to talk about a carbon copy of Gillette Stadium. I didn't realize that until the pandemic when it was empty and you could see I was like, oh my God, that is a clone, except for maybe the red seats and maybe behind the end zones, but they're building a new one. And that was 1999 compared to 02. So I guess in that sense, but ultimately, you know what my takeaway from this survey was coming to the Patriots for the longest time meant usually taking less money, sometimes taking a lesser role, but winning Super Bowls. And you dealt with certain things, whether it be personal, financial, coaching, ego, whatever, because you understood I'll probably be in the Super Bowl this year.
Right.
And I'm sure some aspects of the organization could sort of keep it that way. You know, all right, you don't like travel, you don't like the food, you don't like this. Guess what? You're in the Super Bowl. Now that you're in that post Tom Brady era, you've had to dish out huge money in free agency. You've had to coddle players. You've had to do whatever you can to make it nicer for them. And I think this is probably more behind the scenes stuff that now is not behind the scenes that they're going to have to change, just like all of the stuff that we have seen for the past 2 years.
It's definitely true. And I've probably mentioned this before, but like, even when you go into the locker room, either after games or after, practice, whatever it was, you'd see the players get out of the shower or whatever, like drying themselves off and everything. Like towels that used to be navy blue were like purple. They had been used for so long that they had like shifted colors, and the towels have numbers on them. So you know that they've been passed down from player to player to player to player. And, guys are using probably players' towels from 2012. I don't know if that's still the case at this point. I haven't been as intimately into the locker room, but like that was something where, like you said, like if you've got Tom Brady and you're winning Super Bowls, and there's only so much that you can complain about that. One other point, your point was much more interesting than mine. One other point on just simply facility or stadium. A lot of other teams have a separate facility from their stadium. The Patriots do not. The Patriots facility is Gillette Stadium. And I think that you're a little bit confined by being within a stadium of how big your locker room is going to be, how big your weight room is going to be, how big your cafeteria is going to be. And that was some of those complaints that we saw in this report card of like, we don't have enough room to spread out in the locker room. There's not enough room for everyone to sit in the cafeteria. There's not enough equipment in the training room, and the weight room is not up to date or whatever. But that's like, you can't expand a stadium really. So
yeah, I mean, I guess with the practice field, maybe it could be reconfigured with the parking and all that, but that's a pretty huge undertaking.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. They added like a Revs facility in the woods there for the Revolution.
Yes.
So that could have been, I guess, Patriots. But I mean, yeah, you watched Hard Knocks a couple of years ago with the Cowboys, and their facility is unbelievable.
Yeah.
You had Bill Belichick in Vegas last year calling it the Taj Mahal, clearly envious of seeing what's possible. So I understand that to a large degree. But I don't know. It's like the plane. I was thinking of the airplane. Sorry, it took me a minute to come up with what I was trying. Because the travel ranked poorly too, and everyone's like, "How do you do that when you own the planes? You own the planes." And I'm like, "Well, I don't think football teams have an issue booking flights.
No,
I don't think they've ever been like, we got to get to Indianapolis Saturday, but the flights are all booked.
We got to take a train.
All right, offense is going on Southwest. I'm sorry, we got you priority boarding though, so some of you will sit together. And defense, you're split up. You're on Spirit, so you might not make it. So we
can't bring a carry-on.
Yeah. I'm sorry. So like owning the plane to me is like it's advertising.
It doesn't mean anything. It really does not mean anything.
Got a sick paint job outside. People get excited when they see it at Providence, at TF Green, but I don't think it means they have superior travel to other teams.
Right. No, it's true. And that was like the number one thing that I saw people confused by. It's a 767, so it's a big plane, I think.
It's an absolute unit of airplane.
But like there's pictures of the inside of it, and it's like a 2-row airplane, but it goes 2 seats, 2 in the middle, 2 on the right. So like they're not packed in there like sardines. I think a normal 767 would probably have 3 seats in the middle. So maybe there's like 1 seat taken out there. Maybe it's, I don't know. But like one of the complaints was that they didn't have enough room on the plane. And it's also kind of an older plane. I think it's like a 30-year-old plane. So the seats have probably been replaced. But I think that, yeah, that was, I also saw, at least on Twitter, some people being like, and this is just a very small subset, so I'm just complaining about a small subset of people for no reason.
Get them.
But then being like, oh, this is like a typical like people trying to rip the Patriots, like media type of thing. It's like, no, guys, this is the players on the Patriots. Like you do not know more than the people who are responding to this poll. Like, I'm sorry. Yeah. You basically just have to take this poll at face value and say, like, if you have an issue with what they're saying, that the team needs to do better. Like, the Patriots players are not specifically coddled. And if, let's say that they do have something against the Patriots and are rating them lower than they should, that's another issue that you have to fix. Like that's not necessarily like a good thing of like, these players are just mad at the Patriots and they're giving them bad grades. That's a bad thing too.
It's also, I would say, not necessarily reflective of the team or anything, because the Chiefs ranked very poorly.
Yes.
If I'm not mistaken. If I'm not mistaking that, see, that was not a misstep by me. The Chiefs ranked 29th.
Yes.
And that's an old ass stadium. Have you been in the visiting locker room there?
I have, yeah.
Describe that.
Minuscule.
Yeah. That was, remember like the Patriots had COVID and had to go there, and it was like just a bad situation. But they got an F in team travel. They got a D- in locker room, a D- in training staff, a D+ in training room, a D+ in food service nutrition, and a C+ weight room. but they're the best team in the league, and they have been for several years. So it's not necessarily like, oh, this is why the Patriots suck. It's an area of concern for players, which is a factor when we talk about free agency that I don't think we would have really considered prior to this survey. One last note on the survey, Doug. Not sure if you caught the Giants page. Did you read the Giants?
I don't know if I did.
They literally made it a point to be like, Joe Judge sucked.
Oh yes, I did see that.
They praised they praised Brian Daboll, and they were like, it's a stark contrast to what we used to have to deal with when your head coach has concern and care about your well-being as a person. Worlds different. And it's like, man,
yeah,
Joe Judge is still just under fire from the Giants and
shots.
still under employ of the Patriots. So I just thought that was noteworthy from the survey.
Yeah, it's funny because before you said that, I was gonna say, like, at least with the Chiefs, it was their strength coach, was like specifically called out.
Oh,
maybe not. Maybe it was their training staff. It was someone on the Chiefs.
Yeah, for not reporting injuries.
Yeah, who was like specifically called out.
Rick Burkholder, the head trainer. Players had negative opinions, feeling he does not treat players fairly and consistently or with personal care. And I'll say this, Doug, we probably talked about it on the podcast. When Patrick Mahomes takes a shot to his knee/ankle in a playoff game and is sitting on the bench waiting to get treated, and then sees just daylight in front of him and runs back onto the field to play football.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the quarterback. He's flexing his muscle, so to speak, in his power. But, like, you got to check on the man's ankle. You can't let him have that opportunity. So that was – I don't know if that has anything to do with that, but it sounds like it does.
No, and I would say that, like, I was using this as a positive for the Patriots of, like, at least that didn't happen. At least, like, with the Ravens, it was their strength coach or training staff, whatever it was so bad that, like, basically every former Ravens player has now gone on Twitter to be like, this guy sucked. He was horrible.
Including Carl Davis as well.
And I think Matthew Judon had a tweet about it, too.
Oh, I didn't see that.
And then things got so bad there that Rashad Bateman was, like, chirping at the GM, too. But, like,
here's an interesting one, Doug. Yeah. Sorry, you finished.
Like, at least former Patriots players were not tweeting about how bad the Patriots were. At least, like, beyond Joe Judge, there wasn't one individual. Like, I would say that overall the Patriots graded very poorly. They should not be 24th out of 32 teams. But there wasn't one specific aspect that was so egregiously bad that it became a meme or anything like that. So that's the positive I can throw out.
Yes. Steve Saunders was the Ravens guy.
Yes.
Just one last thought. I guess we're getting a ton of meat on this bone here from this survey. Good stuff, the NFLPA.
I know.
So 100%, I clicked on the Ravens while you were talking, and 100% of the respondents believe Steve Biscotti is willing to invest in upgrades to the facility, whereas only 64% of Patriots or players that played for the Patriots and responded to this believe Robert Kraft is willing to spend the money necessary for upgrades. Now, granted, what does that get? Player belief in an owner spending is based on a lot of various issues, and the fact that we talked about contracts being a little bit perhaps suppressed here over the years might contribute to that. But 100 versus 64 is kind of jarring.
That was Robert Kraft was kind of specifically called out on that aspect as well. So I don't know. Patriots obviously have to do better. I think this was probably a wake-up call. I don't think the NFL was very pleased that this happened and that this information got released. But
we don't want anyone to know the players are human beings with families, with needs, the tolls. And that's the other thing. People are like, oh, spoiled babies. And it's like, okay, got it. Sure. Like, oh, the plane seats aren't big enough. But, hey, you're talking about 6'8", 325-pound men who destroy their bodies every day, who need specific meal, dietary, weight, strength, training regimens. So it's not as if it's like Doug or I being like, oh, my lunch was no good. It's a very important part of their abilities to stay healthy, which is their ability to make money, which is a very short window of time.
Definitely.
So it all does factor in. So
it does.
I am probably always going to be biased pro player over pro league and management, but I think I'm seeing that one pretty fairly.
At least the Patriots also don't make their younger players or selective players room on the road. That's
called bonding, Doug. Who does that?
Know if there was 6 teams. The Chiefs are one of them. I know. I don't want to insult any of my followers intelligence or anything like that, but I screenshotted the description of the Patriots team travel of like why it rated lowly. And the number one reason was that they felt like they didn't have enough space. One of the things on there was it just says no roommates.
No roommates. So they thought it was a complaint?
Yeah, they were like, what? These guys want roommates on the road? I'm like, I didn't respond, but it was like, guys, come on.
Nobody to play Xbox with.
Like,
that's incredible.
We need to be more intelligent than this. But yeah, at least they aren't making guys room on the road. I didn't know that some facilities have daycare at their stadiums, but I was speaking to someone who works in a baseball front office, and he was like, yeah, that's actually pretty common to have daycares, but it's also, it gets kind of cloudy because it's only allowed for players. It's not allowed for coaches sometimes. It's not allowed for like other team employees. So I don't know. Maybe the Patriots are better off just not having one so that there's no
football players famously have kids.
It's true.
You can read about it. There's literature on the subject. They are having children with their wives, girlfriends, acquaintances. They're procreating. People don't know that about them.
Well, thank God, because we need more football players. So they might as well.
I think we need more people, and they need to be cared for. So daycare. This podcast is brought to you by Daycare.
Oh, by the way, 20 minutes in, subscribe, rate, review, give us a rating. Tell us give us a report card, but you can give us
as it's 5-star.
Yeah, you can give us whatever grade you want, but you have to give us 5 stars and then say like, but they actually deserve a 64% or something like that.
Yes.
We don't want the stars to be reflective of the grade.
Fair.
But let's talk about the combine because Bill Belichick's not there.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know. But this is one of those things where I'm like, I don't really care. A lot of head coaches now are skipping it. It seems like Bill Belichick wants to be one of the cool kids because Matt LaFleur's not there. Kyle Shanahan's not there. Sean McVay's not
Bill's
there.
like, I want to be like LaFleur, man.
Bill Belichick now a honorary member of the Shanahan family tree by not going there. I don't know. I would say that as someone who's attended combines, I don't really blame Bill Belichick for not wanting to be there because out of everyone who's at the combine, from coaches, GMs, media, trainers, whatever, like Bill Belichick has to be like maybe in the top 3 most famous people there. Is that fair to say? Like,
all right, maybe, yeah, it is fair. Yes.
So like he's gonna get recognized more often. People are gonna know that he's there. He's gonna get bugged. I think there's work to be done. Like he could maybe like hide himself better, but I don't know. Like would it look better if he was there? Maybe, but I don't know if he really needs to be there.
I would say Bill Belichick is turning 71 in April, if I'm not mistaken. And I understand he still holds the positions that he's held and thus still has responsibilities. But it seems like in recent years, whether it goes back to pre-COVID or post, it seems like he's took some stuff off his plate in the offseason.
Right.
Now, you could take issue with that when the team doesn't perform very well and for no days off. From the man who literally chanted no days off at tens of thousands of people who skipped work to celebrate his team. You could point out that it's not conducive to winning the way that he preaches, and I get it, but I just think the reality of it is he is doing a little bit more Bill time, which I don't have an issue with personally. If I spent my 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s the way he did, I would probably want some boat time or whatever it may be, but it feels like he has taken a step to lessen that. Is that good or bad for the team? I don't know, Doug. I personally hate the combine. It's like my least favorite thing on the whole NFL schedule from an outsider's perspective.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I hope everyone skips. I actually think this is at play too. The combine used to be a work event. It was all business. Right. It has since become a TV event. It has since become a larger event. It has become a networking event. Right. Things Bill Belichick is not interested in. Networking. And
there's no reason for him to be networking out there. And honestly, I think the Patriots coaching contingency in general is pretty small out there. I think
Judge, Pellegrino, Troy Brown.
and then
And I know Mac Rose there.
and Joe Houston,
Sure.
I think.
Yeah.
Like, does he want his coaches going out there and networking and finding another job somewhere else and gallivanting around with other teams? Like, maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
They
And
don't
I just
need
think
to be.
yeah, true. And to finish off the point I was struggling to make, sorry, this heat just kicked on like a frightening children's movie.
What are you, Macaulay Culkin in Home Alone, afraid of your
Exactly.
furnace?
Yes, I am. We talked about Bill kind of trolling the draft with some of his draft picks, with taking a long snapper and moving up to get a punter and whatnot, because it's sort of like, screw your draft enterprise, screw your draft side business. You don't know what you're talking about. I feel like the combine has gotten away from perhaps what it was, and Bill is probably just like, screw your stupid combine crap. Enough.
I could see, and I think that it might be also possible that now that a lot of these events are held at night, like they're working out players at, last night was like 8 or 9 p.m., something like that. Like, he's probably just like, well, what the hell are we doing here? Like, we had to move this from like 10 a.m.
Yeah,
now on the
for TV,
weekends
all
at
for TV,
1.
yeah.
Right, and it's for TV, and I don't know. I loved the combine when I was growing up, when I was like new to this business, all that kind of stuff. Like, I would be the psycho who would watch it at 10 a.m. on Saturday or at like 1 p.m. on a Friday or a Thursday, whatever it was. Like, is the appetite for combine so high that like they're even catering to people who wouldn't be that psychotic about it? Like, I don't know. To me, it just feels weird. And
yeah, they probably get more eyeballs though on like a night, just a prime time than a 10 a.m. window. But it felt like more of a 10 a.m. event because it was just exercise.
Yeah. Well, also, players last year weren't able to run 3 cones because they literally ran out of time. Like, they weren't actually able to do what the combine was set up for because they had made that a TV event. So maybe that was Bill Belichick's final straw, being like, if I can't get my 3 cone times,
true,
you assholes are moving this to 10 a.m. or to 10 p.m.
Yeah,
I'm out.
Also, remember last year the wide receivers all ran like 3.8 40s, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, they're the fastest ever!" And like, "Oh yeah, no, we were way off."
I feel like that was happening last night too, because like it was like a human being who weighs 280 pounds ran a 4.49. Like, what? That feels impossible.
I do want to say this because I'm not as like numbers. What's the word when you're
smart?
No, like just you see the numbers and you instantly have recollections and things to base that off of. Numbers literate as I am with the combine numbers. So I saw the D lineman yesterday. The D tackle ran like a 4.72 or 4.76, I want to say. And that reminded me because I had just read Slade Bolden the day before, who had worked out for the Patriots, ran a 4.66. So he's like he's a little faster than the fastest D tackle, which put that in perspective for me. I was like, oh, he's quite slow.
Yeah, I was thinking about that there was a linebacker for Iowa who was 6'5", 249. And like he ran like a 6.74 3-cone, which would have been extremely fast for a wide receiver. And I actually was like, all right, I'm going to pull up his numbers. I'm going to pull up Wes Welker and Danny Amendola's numbers. Just see just compare them across the board. And like he was better in everything. Like he would have been a more athletic slot receiver than almost anyone that the Patriots have had as a slot receiver since 2000. I was like, wow, that's pretty interesting. I think he ran like a 4.65, something like that, 42.
Maybe you can go both ways. I do like though, and this is something I think you introduced me to at some point on the internet, the spider graphs. Love those things. Those rock.
Draftable. Yeah.
Love those.
Those are great. All right. Well, another thing about the combine, I think a lot of the meetings are overblown. Teams want to meet with every player at some point in the process, whether that's in the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl, NFLPA game, combine, post-combine meetings, whatever it is. So when you see that they're meeting with like all these guys, it doesn't really mean a whole lot. I did think it was interesting that when Jordan Schultz put out the list of teams that Anthony Richardson had met with, it was a bunch of teams that needed quarterbacks and the Patriots. It was like the Raiders. It was either teams that needed quarterbacks, whose quarterbacks are free agents, or the Patriots.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think the Patriots are going to draft a quarterback in the first round of the 2023 NFL draft, but like if Anthony Richardson fell, would it be that insane?
No, I don't think
so either.
I mean, it's the most important position in the field, in the sport. And as we've stated on this, like we've been extremely fair, I think, on Mac Jones's previous season. But even that notwithstanding, we don't know that he's going to lead a franchise for the next decade. Like announcers were saying in week 1 last year, like Mac Jones, he's the guy for the next decade. It's like, is he? Right. And, you saw this week, Daniel Jones apparently wants $40 million.
45.
So, my bad. Daniel Jones wants $45 million.
No one wrote a headline about that.
That's true. Doug Kyed wants $45 million. He has a slightly better chance of getting it than you do, but only slightly.
Only slightly.
Marginally better than you.
Deserves it only a little bit more.
So you are, no matter what, staring down that deadline with Mac Jones 3 years from now, 2 years from now, really have to make that decision. So they don't know. They might have feelings and thoughts. So to always stack up, I miss the days, Doug, when this would happen and be like, oh, it's because they know he's going to a rival and they want to get some intel on him. They want to pick his brain. So I was like, those were the days, man, when they'd win 14 games without even breaking a sweat, and you could do all these things. Now it's like, I don't know. I really don't.
Yeah, I really don't know. And I doubt that anyone has asked like Bryce Young or Will Levis or CJ Stroud if they've met with the Patriots. But I don't know. I do think that there's kind of something special about Anthony Richardson. I have no idea if he's going to be good or not. He, frankly, wasn't very good for half of last season at Florida. And I think that a lot of people are comparing him to Lamar Jackson, which they're like athletic quarterbacks who are somewhat raw as passers coming out of college. So like to that degree, I can almost understand it, but I almost feel like people have forgotten how freaking good Lamar Jackson was in college. He was running for 1,600 yards per season. He was like an unbelievably efficient passer.
You want a comparison?
First of all, well, Anthony Richardson completed 53% of his passes last season, and he ran for 600 yards. Like, it's beyond a stratosphere of comparison.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson was so much better in college.
Lamar Jackson threw 30 touchdowns as a sophomore with 9 interceptions and 27 touchdowns with 10 interceptions as a junior. Anthony Richardson threw 6 touchdowns as a freshman last year, 2021, and 5 interceptions, and threw 17 touchdowns and 9 interceptions last year for 2,500 yards. Lamar had 3,500 yards and 3,600 yards passing. Yes. Rushing, Richardson had 400 yards and 654 yards, whereas Lamar Jackson had 1,571 yards as a sophomore and 1,601 yards as a junior after rushing, Doug, as a freshman for 960 yards. Which is, as a freshman, before he was even the regular starter, he had 900 rushing yards. And Anthony Richardson, in total in college, rushed for 1,100 yards. So, different player. Anthony Richardson said he's a combination of Cam Newton and Lamar Jackson. So, maybe you want to talk about Cam Newton's numbers. So, I would say no. Quite different, for sure.
Yeah, and I know that, being a quarterback prospect is different than being a college football player, but I don't know. I feel like there's other players that you could maybe compare Anthony Richardson to, other than a Heisman Trophy winner, when Anthony Richardson at times last year was like, are we sure this guy should still be starting for Florida? 2 of his first 3 games were very, very, very poor. Did round back into shape. We're running out of time.
Quickly? I know we're out of time, and this is all me, my fault. Put it on me. My favorite football fact of all time is Cam Newton's supporting staff, supporting offensive players at Auburn for an undefeated national championship season. Oh, God,
they're so bad.
His leading receiver was a fellow, Doug. Can you name him? His leading receiver was Darvin Adams. Are you familiar with his work? Followed by Terrell Zachary, followed by Emery Blake, followed by Mario Fannin, and then followed by tight end Philip Lutzenkirchen. That is who Cam Newton threw the ball to when he went 14-0 and won a national championship. I was trying to remember who the running back was. It was Mario Fannin was like his other best offensive player. Right? Michael Dyer and Ontario McCaleb. Mario Fannin was 4th in rushing yards.
Good Lord.
But Cam Newton, pretty good in college.
Pretty fantastic in college. And we'll see how but I do think that there's a lot of value to having an athletic, mobile quarterback that maybe you can work with passing wise. And I do think that the Patriots in the short term would be better off going with a wide receiver or cornerback or an offensive tackle with that 14th overall pick. But if you're looking long term, I don't know. I don't totally hate the idea of taking a quarterback. Like, if one of those guys starts to fall who has much higher upside than Mac Jones, I don't know how everyone would respond to that. But like there's the conversation around the Bears right now of whether they should take a quarterback when they have Justin Fields.
Right.
Mac Jones wasn't as good this season, I'd argue, as Justin Fields. They took Mac Jones later than the Bears took Justin Fields. The big difference there is that the current Bears power structure did not draft Justin Fields, whereas Bill Belichick did draft Mac Jones. So that's the difference in the conversations. But I don't know. I don't despise the idea. We have like 3 minutes left. Is there anything else that you wanted to get to about the combine or anything else going on this week?
No.
Fair enough. I do think that there's been some reports. Let's just touch real quickly on Keenan Allen. Apparently isn't going anywhere. Tom Telesco, the Chargers GM, said that they're not going to trade him or cut him. I'll believe that when I see it, or when I
Neither
don't
is
see
T.
it.
Higgins. Neither is T. Higgins.
And then
Nobody's getting traded.
Bengals, he's not the GM, but Duke Tobin was like, they should find their own T. Higgins, which that's kind of funny. I don't know. I like Rashad Bateman going after the GM. I'd probably call the Ravens to see if he's available. I know he's not as sexy as a T. Higgins or a Keenan Allen. Brandon Cooks still wants to be traded. DeAndre Hopkins still out there. The Cooks and Hopkins things are weird, though, because Hopkins and Cooks both have ties to Bill O'Brien from their times with the Texans. Cooks was much shorter than Hopkins. But then, I don't know, I almost feel like Belichick brings back guys for second stints with the Patriots so much that the Cooks thing seems like it could kind of become real.
Yeah. I don't know that I would want Brandon Cooks at this point, given what you need more than...
Right. Yeah, you don't want to necessarily pay Brandon Cooks as much as Brandon Cooks makes.
That, and just his skill set, I don't know what the Patriots' offensive identity or structure is actually, so I can't say that it doesn't fit in, but I don't know that a speed guy on the outside is exactly... I'm looking at Mac Jones as in need of some more intermediate possession, big body type guys that can get open with their body and not have to... I don't know. They have Tyquan Thornton. I'm not saying Tyquan Thornton is Brandon Cooks, but you might have a redundancy in skill set if you do that.
Yeah, he could be a decent facsimile. I like Jackson Smith and Jigba. I like Jordan Anderson. I think that those are two guys who were very, very good in 2021. For certain reasons, they did not perform as well in 2022. I think that you might be able to get a discount on those players, take them at number 14 overall, and maybe get your Devontae Smith or whoever it is. Like, that is the way to get the elite wide receiver. It's probably not through a trade or free agency or anything else. We will leave everything there with that. All right. Do you have any parting words?
What a pass, Chet. I want to just wish a happy 37th birthday to Master of Puppets, the greatest album of all time. Turns 37 today. Some other people in parts of this podcast turned 37 this year, later in the year. So it's kind of like the world got better in 1986. I think that's just my opinion, and it's right. So that's how
Master of Puppets would have been in college from 2004 to 2008.
Yes, we went to college together. Master of Puppets and I did. It was incredible. So what a ride it's been.
All right. Bye, everyone. We'll talk to you soon.
Bye.